The day my life began to unravel started like any other. I was on my way to work, the early morning sun casting long shadows across the quiet suburban streets. The radio hummed softly in the background as I pulled into the parking lot of my office building. Nothing seemed out of place, but that's the thing about betrayal. It creeps up on you, quiet as a thief in the night. As I grabbed my briefcase from the passenger seat, I noticed something unusual on the floor of the back seat. It was a black duffel bag, one I'd never seen before. I frowned, wondering if Rachel, my wife, had left it there. She often borrowed my car when hers was in the shop, but I couldn't recall her mentioning anything about a bag. Curiosity got the better of me. I reached over, unzipped the bag, and felt my stomach drop. Inside was a stash of cash, thousands of dollars, bundled up neatly, and something else, a small plastic bag filled with a white powder. My heart pounded in my chest as the realization hit me. This was cocaine. Before I could even process what I was looking at, the sound of approaching footsteps caught my attention. I looked up just in time to see a group of police officers surrounding my car, guns drawn, their faces set in grim determination. "Step out of the vehicle!" one of them barked, his voice cold and authoritative. I didn't have time to react. In a daze, I slowly opened the door and raised my hands, trying to make sense of what was happening. My thoughts were racing, 1,000 questions flooding my mind. How did this get here? Who set me up? Why? They slammed me against the hood of my car, roughly patting me down before snapping handcuffs around my wrists. The metal bit into my skin, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the sinking feeling in my gut. "You're under arrest for possession and intent to distribute," one of the officers said, reading me my rights as another officer yanked the bag out of the car and held it up like a trophy. This couldn't be real. It had to be some kind of nightmare. But the cold steel around my wrists, the crushing weight of the accusations, they were all too real. As they shoved me into the back of the squad car, I caught a glimpse of Rachel's face in my mind. Her smile, the way she laughed at my jokes, the way she'd kiss me goodnight. And then, like a jigsaw puzzle falling into place, the memory of her recent strange behavior hit me. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the way she'd been distant, almost cold. I'd thought it was just a rough patch. But now, sitting there in the back of that police car, reality began to sink in. Rachel had set me up. My wife, the woman I loved, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. As the car sped towards the police station, sirens blaring, one thought burned in my mind. I would find out why she did this, and I would make her pay. The holding cell was a concrete box with a single bench, and the smell of sweat and fear clinging to the air. I sat there, my head in my hands, trying to wrap my mind around what had just happened. My heart was still pounding from the shock, but beneath that, anger was beginning to simmer. How could Rachel do this to me? We'd been married for nearly 8 years. Sure, we had our ups and downs, but what couple doesn't? I never thought she'd turn on me like this. Yet the evidence was damning. That bag wasn't mine, and there was no other explanation for how it ended up in my car. Someone had put it there, and that someone had to be Rachel. The memory of her recent behavior was like a string of red flags I should have noticed earlier. She'd started coming home late, often with vague excuses about work meetings or catching up with friends. When I'd ask for details, she'd brush me off or get defensive, something that never used to happen. And then there were the phone calls, always stepping out of the room, lowering her voice when she spoke. I chalked it up to stress, or maybe even boredom, but now I realized it was something much darker. I replayed our last conversation in my head. It was just 2 days ago, over dinner. Rachel had been unusually quiet, pushing her food around on her plate instead of eating. I'd asked if everything was okay, and she'd given me a tight smile and said, "Just tired, Jack. It's nothing." But I could see now that it wasn't nothing. It was guilt, or maybe fear, or both. A cop walked by, and I called out to him, "Hey, when do I get my phone call?" He barely glanced at me. "You'll get your chance. Sit tight." I clenched my fists, frustration boiling over. I needed to talk to someone, anyone, to figure out what the hell was going on. But more than that, I needed answers. How deep did this go? Was she working with someone else? How long had she been planning this? Finally, after what felt like hours, they let me make a call. I dialed the only person I could think of, my friend and lawyer, Tom Reynolds. Tom and I had gone to college together, and he was someone I could trust. When he answered, his voice was groggy. It was still early, and I'd woken him up. "Tom, it's Jack. I'm in trouble. I've been arrested." "What? For what?" His voice sharpened instantly, the sleep gone. "They found drugs in my car, but it's a setup, Tom. I didn't put them there. I think Rachel did." There was a long pause on the other end. "Rachel? Are you sure? Who else could it be?" My voice cracked with the weight of it all. "She's been acting strange for weeks, maybe months. I didn't see it then, but now—" "Tom, I think she's been planning this, and I need your help to prove it." Tom's response was quick and steady. "I'll be there as soon as I can. Don't say anything to anyone until I get there, okay?" "Yeah, thanks, Tom." I hung up the phone and sat back down on the bench, my mind racing. The idea that Rachel was behind this was almost too much to bear, but the more I thought about it, the more sense it made. She had the motive. If I went down for this, she'd have access to everything. The house, the money, my business. But why go to such extremes? Why not just ask for a divorce? The Rachel I thought I knew wouldn't have done something like this. The Rachel I thought I knew didn't exist anymore. I had to find out the truth, no matter what it took. And when I did, Rachel would regret ever thinking she could destroy me. Tom arrived at the station within the hour, his usual calm demeanor barely masking the concern in his eyes. He was a solid guy, the kind of friend who'd drop everything to help, and right now, I needed that more than ever. "They've got you in deep, Jack," Tom said, as we sat in the small, sterile interview room. "The drugs, the cash, it's enough to bury you if we don't figure this out." "I know." My voice was raw, strained from holding back the storm of emotions raging inside me. But it wasn't mine. It was Rachel's. She set me up, Tom. I'm sure of it. Tom leaned back in his chair, his brow furrowed. "Why? What would she gain from doing something like this?" I took a deep breath, trying to piece together the fragments of information that had been gnawing at me since my arrest. "I don't know everything yet, but she's been acting strange for a while. Distant, secretive. And then there's the money. I think she's been hiding things from me. Financially, I mean." Tom nodded slowly, absorbing the information. "You think she's involved in something illegal?" "That's what I'm afraid of," I admitted. "And if she is, she could have put everything in my name to cover her tracks." Tom scratched his chin, deep in thought. "We need to find out what she's been up to, and fast. If she's really behind this, we'll need proof, solid proof." "I was thinking the same thing," I said. "That's why I need you to hire a private investigator, someone who can dig into her life, her finances, everything. We need to know what she's been doing, who she's been talking to, and why she would do this to me." Tom agreed, and within the next hour, he made the call to a PI he trusted, someone discreet and thorough. As the wheels were set in motion, I was finally released on bail, thanks to Tom's quick work and the funds I still had access to. Walking out of that station was like stepping out of a nightmare, but the reality waiting for me outside was no less daunting. Back at the house, everything looked the same. The neatly trimmed lawn, the flower beds Rachel insisted on tending to every weekend, the front door we'd painted together last summer. But now it all felt like a facade, hiding the lies and deceit that had been festering beneath the surface. When I stepped inside, the silence was deafening. Rachel wasn't home, and I was grateful for that. I needed time to think, to plan my next move without her presence muddying my thoughts. I went to our bedroom, the room that now felt more like a stranger's than my own. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the pictures on the wall. Our wedding day, vacations, happy memories that felt like they belonged to someone else. I began searching through the house, looking for anything that could give me a clue, something that would confirm my suspicions. I started with her office, the place where she spent so much of her time lately. It was meticulously organized, as always, but I was looking for what she might have hidden, not what she displayed. After nearly an hour of combing through files, drawers, and her computer, I found it. A ledger, tucked away in a locked drawer at the bottom of her desk. The numbers inside were staggering. Large sums of money moved through accounts I didn't recognize, withdrawals and deposits that didn't align with anything I knew about our finances. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. The dates matched up with the times she'd been acting most suspicious. And then, buried within the records, I found a series of payments to a name I didn't recognize, Jacob Flynn. I had no idea who he was, but I knew he wasn't anyone I'd ever done business with. My gut told me this was one of her connections, someone who might know the full extent of what Rachel had been up to. Just as I was about to dig deeper, I heard the front door open. Rachel was home. I quickly put the ledger back where I found it, locking the drawer and slipping the key back into its place before making my way downstairs. Rachel's face lit up when she saw me, the perfect picture of a loving wife. "Jack, I didn't expect you home so early. How was your day?" I forced a smile, trying to keep my voice steady. "Long, just glad to be home." She approached me, wrapping her arms around my neck in a gesture that once felt comforting but now felt suffocating. "I'm glad you're home too," she whispered. As I held her close, my mind raced. I had to keep playing along, pretending I didn't know the truth, until I had everything I needed. But the clock was ticking, and every second brought me closer to the moment when I'd confront her and rip the mask off the woman who'd betrayed me. One thing was certain. I was getting closer to the truth. And when I finally had all the pieces, Rachel would realize that she wasn't the only one capable of playing a long game. The days that followed were a delicate balancing act. I had to pretend everything was normal while secretly working to uncover the full extent of Rachel's betrayal. Every smile, every kiss, every shared meal felt like a performance, a charade that gnawed at my soul. But I had no choice. I needed to keep her off guard to make her believe her plan was still intact. Tom kept me updated on the private investigator's progress. The PI, a seasoned pro named Marcus Green, moved quickly, digging into Rachel's background, finances, and connections. Every day brought new revelations, each one more damning than the last. One night, after Rachel had gone to bed, I sat in my office, the room dark except for the dim glow of my computer screen. I opened my email and found a message from Marcus. It was a detailed report, attached with photos and documents that painted a clear picture of what Rachel had been doing behind my back. The first few pages confirmed what I already suspected. Rachel had been siphoning money from our joint accounts into secret ones, covering her tracks with small, frequent transactions that wouldn't raise immediate red flags. But the real shock came when I saw the photos. Rachel with Jacob Flynn, the man whose name I'd found in her ledger. They weren't just business associates. The pictures showed them together in public, holding hands, laughing, even kissing. My stomach churned with a mixture of anger and disgust as I scrolled through the images. She had been living a double life, and Flynn was more than just a partner in crime. He was her lover. But the betrayal ran deeper than that. Marcus had uncovered evidence that Flynn was part of a criminal network involved in money laundering, drug trafficking, and fraud. Rachel wasn't just trying to destroy me for financial gain. She was deeply entangled in something far more sinister. The report detailed their operation, how they used Flynn's connections to move money and drugs, how Rachel played the role of the respectable wife while secretly laundering money through our legitimate business. The plan had been to frame me, to make me the fall guy while she and Flynn walked away with everything. I clenched my fists, my knuckles turning white. It was almost too much to take in. The woman I had shared my life with, the person I had trusted above all others, was nothing more than a cold-blooded schemer. She had been willing to ruin me, to see me rot in prison, just to protect herself and her criminal lover. But now I had everything I needed to turn the tables. The evidence was solid, indisputable. I could go to the police, expose the whole operation, and watch as Rachel's carefully constructed world came crashing down around her. As I sat there, staring at the damning evidence, a new plan began to form in my mind. Going to the authorities would be the logical move, but it wouldn't be enough. Rachel had tried to destroy me, and I wasn't going to let her off that easily. I wanted her to suffer, to feel the same fear, the same helplessness that she had tried to inflict on me. I would let her think she was winning, that her plan was working, right up until the moment I pulled the rug out from under her. I wanted to see the look on her face when she realized she had lost everything, her lover, her freedom, her future, and I would be the one to take it all away. The next morning, I played my part perfectly. Over breakfast, I smiled at Rachel, asked about her plans for the day, and even kissed her goodbye as she left for whatever lies she had planned. But inside, I was seething, every word, every gesture calculated as part of my own strategy. As soon as she was gone, I called Tom. "We're going to take this slow," I told him. "I want to destroy her piece by piece, just like she tried to do to me." Tom, who had been with me through thick and thin, didn't hesitate. Whatever you need, Jack. Just tell me how you want to play this. And so we began the final phase of my plan. With Marcus's help, I started laying the groundwork, making subtle moves to undermine Rachel and Flynn without them noticing. I funneled money back into accounts Rachel thought were hidden, leaving her with just enough to believe she was still in control. I fed misinformation to her, leading her to think I was oblivious, that her plan was still working flawlessly. Meanwhile, Marcus dug deeper into Flynn's operation, finding cracks that we could exploit. We identified key players, weak links that could be turned against them. We planted seeds of doubt and suspicion among their associates, slowly eroding the trust they had in each other. And Rachel, blissfully unaware of the storm gathering around her, continued to play her role, believing she was still the puppet master, when in reality, the strings were now in my hands. The days turned into weeks, each one bringing me closer to the moment I had been waiting for. The moment when I would confront Rachel with everything, when I would tear down the life she had built on lies and deceit. I could feel the tension building, the anticipation growing with each passing day. Soon, I told myself. Soon, Rachel would pay for every lie, every betrayal, and I would be there to watch as her world crumbled piece by piece. Rachel's behavior grew bolder as the days passed, her confidence in her plan almost laughable. She was convinced she had me right where she wanted, blinded, unsuspecting, and ripe for the final blow. Little did she know every step she took brought her closer to her own demise. The routine continued. Rachel would leave for her meetings, and I would follow my part of the plan. But this time, I began feeding her the lies she needed to hear. I started dropping hints of desperation, carefully crafted to make her believe I was crumbling under the weight of the accusations and stress. The idea was to draw her in, to make her feel secure in her power over me. One evening, I deliberately came home late, looking disheveled and defeated. Rachel was sitting on the couch, her phone in hand, texting someone. I could only assume it was Flynn. She looked up, and for a split second, I saw a glimmer of satisfaction in her eyes. "Rough day?" she asked, feigning concern. I sighed heavily, dropping my keys on the counter. "You have no idea. The lawyers, the stress, it's all getting to me, Rachel. I don't know how much more I can take." Rachel stood up, crossing the room to place a hand on my shoulder. "Jack, you'll get through this. You always do." I looked at her, letting my eyes show the pain and doubt I wanted her to believe I felt. "I'm not so sure this time. Everything's falling apart." She squeezed my shoulder gently, the perfect image of a supportive wife. "We'll figure it out. We just need to stay strong." Inside, I wanted to laugh at the irony. Here she was, thinking she had me fooled, when in reality, I was the one spinning the web. But I held my composure, nodding and thanking her for her support. As the night wore on, I played the role of the weary, broken husband, retreating to my office under the pretense of catching up on work. In reality, I was finalizing the next stage of my plan. With Tom and Marcus's help, I had begun shifting our assets, securing funds in places Rachel couldn't reach, preparing for the moment when I would strike. But there was more to do. Rachel's connection with Flynn was the key to everything, and I needed to exploit that connection to its fullest. The photos Marcus had taken of them together would be useful, but I wanted more. Something that would not only incriminate her, but also completely destroy the trust between her and Flynn. The next day, I arranged a meeting with Marcus and Tom in secret. We gathered at a small, discreet cafe on the outskirts of town. Over coffee, I laid out my plan. "Marcus, I need you to set up a situation where Rachel believes Flynn is betraying her," I said. "Something that will make her question everything they've built together." Marcus nodded, understanding my intentions immediately. "I can plant false evidence, make it look like Flynn's been skimming money from their operation or double-crossing her with someone else. We'll stage it carefully, make sure it's convincing." Tom leaned forward, adding his thoughts. "Once she suspects Flynn, she'll start to unravel. If we can time it right, she'll make a mistake, something we can use to force her hand." "That's the idea," I said. "And when she does, we'll be ready. I want her to feel like she's losing control, like the walls are closing in on her. By the time she realizes what's happening, it'll be too late." With the plan set, we moved quickly. Marcus worked his contacts, fabricating documents and crafting a narrative that would make Rachel believe Flynn was cutting her out of the profits. He even arranged for her to accidentally overhear a conversation between two of Flynn's associates, hinting at his supposed betrayal. The trap was laid, and it wasn't long before Rachel took the bait. One evening, about a week later, I noticed a change in her demeanor. She was distracted, her mind clearly elsewhere. When she thought I wasn't looking, she checked her phone repeatedly, her expression growing more anxious with each glance. I watched her carefully, sensing the shift. The seeds of doubt had been planted, and they were taking root. "Is everything okay, Rachel?" I asked, keeping my tone casual as we sat down to dinner. She looked up, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just a lot on my mind." "Anything you want to talk about?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "No, it's nothing, just work stuff." I let it go, knowing that pressing her would only make her suspicious. But inside, I knew the plan was working. Rachel was starting to crack, the pressure building as she struggled to maintain control over the situation. Over the next few days, I watched as Rachel became increasingly paranoid. She started making calls in the middle of the night, speaking in hushed tones when she thought I was asleep. Her texts became more frequent, her conversations with Flynn growing more heated. I could tell she was beginning to question everything, her trust in him eroding by the hour. Then came the breaking point. Late one night, after Rachel had retreated to bed, I received a message from Marcus. It was a recording taken earlier that evening, Rachel confronting Flynn in a heated argument. She accused him of betraying her, of skimming money, and of planning to leave her with nothing. Flynn's response was exactly what I'd hoped for. He denied everything, but the damage was done. The trust between them had been shattered, and their once solid partnership was now a ticking time bomb. The next morning, Rachel was a mess. She barely spoke to me, her mind clearly consumed by the chaos in her life. I could see the fear in her eyes, the realization that her carefully laid plans were falling apart. It was exactly what I had wanted. I played my part to perfection, pretending to be oblivious to her inner turmoil. But inside, I knew the moment was coming when I would reveal everything, when I would show her just how badly she had underestimated me. The stage was set, and the final act was about to begin. Rachel's world was crumbling, and I was the one holding the wrecking ball. The time for subtlety was over. Soon, she would learn the true cost of betrayal. The morning I chose to confront Rachel began like any other, a stark contrast to the storm brewing just beneath the surface. She sat at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of coffee, her eyes red-rimmed and weary. The mask she'd worn so confidently had begun to crack, revealing the fear and desperation she could no longer hide. I watched her for a moment, studying the woman I'd once loved, now a stranger cloaked in lies and deceit. There was no turning back from what I was about to do, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a strange sense of calm. "Rachel," I said, my voice steady, "we need to talk." She looked up, her eyes narrowing slightly. "About what?" "About everything." I sat down across from her, locking eyes with her. "No more lies, no more games. It's time to put everything on the table." Rachel blinked, her composure faltering for just a moment before she forced a smile. "What are you talking about, Jack? What's going on?" I leaned in, my tone sharp. "I know what you've been doing, Rachel. I know about the money, about Flynn, about the drugs you planted in my car. I know everything." The color drained from her face, her eyes widening in shock. "Jack, don't." I cut her off, my voice cold. "Don't insult me by pretending you don't know what I'm talking about. It's over, Rachel. I've known for weeks, and I've been one step ahead of you the entire time." She sat back in her chair, her expression shifting from shock to anger. "You're bluffing. You don't have proof." I smiled, the satisfaction of finally revealing my hand washing over me. "Oh, but I do. I've got the ledger, the bank records, the photos of you and Flynn together. I've got recordings of your phone calls, including the one where you planned to frame me. I have everything I need to destroy you." Rachel's face twisted with rage. "You think you're so clever, don't you? You think you can just take me down without consequences?" "I don't think, Rachel, I know." I stood up, towering over her. "You were so confident, so sure of yourself, that you never even considered that I might be onto you. You thought you could play me, but you forgot one crucial detail. I'm not as stupid as you think." She shot up from her chair, her fists clenched. "You bastard! You think you've won? You think you can just walk away from this unscathed? I stared her down, unflinching. You've already lost, Rachel. The moment you chose to betray me, you sealed your fate. Now it's just a matter of how much damage you're willing to take before you realize it. Her eyes blazed with fury, but I could see the fear lurking just beneath the surface. She knew I was right, knew that the game she had been playing was over, but she wasn't ready to admit defeat. Not yet. Jack, she hissed, you're going to regret this. Maybe, I said with a shrug, but not as much as you're going to regret betraying me. She stormed out of the kitchen, slamming the door behind her. I didn't follow. I knew where she was going, straight to Flynn, the only person she had left to turn to. It was exactly what I wanted. As soon as she was gone, I grabbed my phone and called Marcus. It's done, I said. She's going to Flynn now. Good, Marcus replied. We've got eyes on him. When they meet, we'll be ready. I hung up and took a deep breath, the weight of the morning's confrontation settling in. There was no going back now. Rachel would try to fight back, try to salvage whatever she could from the ruins of her plan, but it was too late. The trap was set, and all that was left was to spring it. A few hours later, I got the call I'd been waiting for. They're together, Marcus said. They're arguing, but it looks like they're planning something. We've got enough to bring them both in. Do it, I said, my voice hard as steel, and make sure they know exactly who put them there. I hung up, a sense of grim satisfaction washing over me. The mask was off, the deception laid bare for all to see. Rachel's world was about to come crashing down, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. I waited, the minutes dragging by as I imagined the scene playing out. Rachel and Flynn, desperate and cornered, realizing too late that they had underestimated me. The police, storming in to arrest them both, their plans unraveled and their freedom ripped away. And then, finally, the call came. It's done, Marcus said. They're both in custody. It's over, Jack. I closed my eyes, a wave of relief washing over me. Thank you, Marcus. I owe you one. Just doing my job, he replied. But you played this perfectly, Jack. You got your revenge. I hung up and leaned back in my chair, the reality of what I'd done settling in. I had won, but the victory was bittersweet. Rachel, the woman I'd once loved, was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. And while I'd brought her down, I couldn't help but wonder what it had cost me. But there was no room for regret. Rachel had tried to destroy me, and I had done what I had to do to survive. The mask had come off, and the truth had been revealed. Now, all that was left was to move forward, to rebuild the life she had tried to take from me. As I sat there, the house eerily quiet, I couldn't help but think about the future. Rachel was out of my life for good, and while the road ahead would be difficult, it was mine to walk. I had faced the darkness and come out on the other side, and for that, I would always be grateful. The arrest of Rachel and Flynn sent shockwaves through our small town. The whispers started almost immediately, spreading like wildfire through every corner of the community. People who once admired Rachel for her charm and poise now looked at her with a mix of shock and disdain. The perfect facade she'd worked so hard to maintain was shattered, revealing the twisted reality beneath. I kept to myself in the days that followed, avoiding the curious stares and the inevitable questions. The last thing I wanted was to relive the nightmare by discussing it with nosy neighbors or well-meaning acquaintances. Instead, I focused on the task ahead, untangling the mess Rachel had left behind and starting to rebuild the life she'd tried to destroy. Tom and I worked tirelessly to stabilize the business. With Rachel's arrest, the company had taken a hit, clients were nervous, and trust was in short supply. But with the evidence Marcus had gathered, we were able to clear my name, proving that Rachel had been the mastermind behind the illegal activities. Even so, the damage was done. Some clients pulled out, unwilling to associate with a company tainted by scandal. Others stayed, out of loyalty or because they believed in my innocence. I was grateful for their support, but it didn't change the fact that we had a long road ahead of us to rebuild our reputation. In the midst of the chaos, I found myself grappling with a mix of emotions. The satisfaction of seeing Rachel and Flynn brought to justice was undeniable, but it was tempered by a profound sense of loss. The woman I had loved, the life we had built together, it was all gone, reduced to ashes by her betrayal. I thought back to the early days of our marriage, to the dreams we had shared, the plans we had made. It all seemed so distant now, like a memory from another lifetime. How had we gone from that to this? How had Rachel become someone I barely recognized? There were no easy answers, just the cold, hard truth that people change, and not always for the better. I had to accept that the Rachel I had loved was gone, replaced by someone consumed by greed and ambition. And while I had emerged from the wreckage with my freedom intact, I couldn't shake the feeling that something precious had been lost. One evening, as I sat alone in the house that had once been filled with laughter and love, I received an unexpected phone call. It was Marcus, his voice steady as always. "Jack, I wanted to give you a heads up," he said. "Rachel's lawyer is pushing for a deal. She's willing to testify against Flynn in exchange for a reduced sentence." I wasn't surprised. Rachel had always been a survivor, willing to do whatever it took to protect herself. But the idea of her turning on Flynn, the man she had risked everything for, left a bitter taste in my mouth. "What kind of deal are we talking about?" I asked. "From what I hear, it's still being negotiated. But if she cooperates fully, she could get a significantly lighter sentence, maybe even parole in a few years." I took a deep breath, the news hitting me harder than I'd expected. "And Flynn? He's facing serious charges. Drug trafficking, money laundering, conspiracy. With Rachel's testimony, he's looking at a long time behind bars." I nodded, even though Marcus couldn't see me. "Thanks for letting me know." "Jack," Marcus said after a pause, "I know this isn't easy, but you did the right thing. You had to protect yourself." "I know," I replied, though the words felt hollow. "But that doesn't make it any easier." After I hung up, I sat in silence, the weight of the conversation pressing down on me. The idea of Rachel walking free, even if only for a few years, stirred something deep inside, a mix of anger, sadness, and a sense of inevitability. I knew she would do whatever it took to survive, just as she always had. But the thought of her out there, continuing her life while I was left to pick up the pieces of the one she'd tried to destroy, filled me with a quiet resolve. I couldn't change what had happened, but I could control how I moved forward. Over the next few weeks, I poured myself into rebuilding the business. It was a slow, painstaking process, but with Tom's help, we started to see progress. Clients who had been on the fence began to return, reassured by the steps we were taking to restore integrity to the company. The road ahead was still long, but for the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope. In the evenings when the work was done, I often found myself reflecting on the past few months. The whirlwind of betrayal, revenge, and fallout had taken its toll, leaving me weary but also strangely determined. I had survived Rachel's attempt to ruin me, and now it was time to reclaim my life. One night, as I was closing up the office, I received another call, this time from Tom. "Jack," he said, his voice unusually serious, "I think you should see this." He directed me to a news article that had just been published online. It was about Rachel, her arrest, the charges, and the plea deal she was negotiating. But what caught my attention was a single line buried in the middle of the piece. "Sources close to the case suggest that Rachel Carter plans to write a tell-all book about her experiences." I stared at the screen, disbelief and anger bubbling up inside me. Even now, with everything she'd done, Rachel was looking for a way to profit from her betrayal. It was the final insult, a reminder that for her, it had never been about love or loyalty, only about what she could gain. But as the initial shock wore off, I felt something else, a sense of clarity. Rachel might try to spin her story, to rewrite the narrative in her favor, but I knew the truth, and I wasn't going to let her take anything more from me. I turned off the computer, locking the office behind me as I stepped into the cool night air. The town was quiet, the streets empty, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of peace. Rachel's story was hers to tell, but it was no longer my concern. My life, my future, was my own. And as I walked through the darkened streets, I knew that whatever came next, I was ready. The fallout from Rachel's betrayal would linger for a while, but it would not define me. I had faced the storm and come out the other side. Now, it was time to move forward, to rebuild, and to live the life that Rachel had tried so hard to take away. As I turned the corner toward my home, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The past was behind me, and the future, whatever it held, was mine to shape. And for the first time in months, I allowed myself to believe that everything might just be okay. Days turned into weeks, and the dust from Rachel's arrest slowly began to settle. The town had found new gossip to chew on, and the whispers about me had faded into the background. Life was regaining a semblance of normalcy, even if it was a new kind of normal. I threw myself into work, determined to rebuild the business and my reputation, brick by brick. But just when I thought I was beginning to close that chapter of my life, a final twist emerged, one I hadn't seen coming. It started with a letter. I found it one morning, slipped under my front door. The envelope was plain, the handwriting unfamiliar. For a moment I hesitated, a cold knot of dread forming in my stomach. My instincts screamed at me not to open it, but curiosity won out. With a deep breath, I tore it open. The letter inside was brief, only a few sentences. But those sentences were enough to shake me to my core. Asterisk, asterisk, Jack. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. You think you know everything, but you don't. There's more to the story than you realize, and if you're smart, you'll stop digging. This isn't over. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. R asterisk, asterisk. The signature was unmistakable. Rachel. Even from behind bars, she was trying to exert control, trying to shake me. My first instinct was to dismiss the letter as a desperate attempt to rattle me, a final power play from a woman who had lost everything. But the more I thought about it, the more the words gnawed at me. What did she mean? More to the story? Was it just another mind game, or was there something I had missed? I decided to show the letter to Tom. We met at a small diner on the edge of town, the kind of place where no one would notice two old friends having a quiet conversation. Tom read the letter twice, his brow furrowing deeper with each pass. This could be nothing, he said finally, but it could also be something. Rachel's smart. If she's playing a game, it's a dangerous one. She's trying to get under my skin, I replied, though I wasn't sure if I was convincing Tom or myself, trying to make me second-guess everything. Maybe, Tom agreed, but what if she's not? What if there's something you haven't uncovered yet? I sighed, running a hand through my hair. Like what, Tom? We've gone through everything, every file, every account. I thought we'd found it all. Tom leaned back in his seat, considering. She was good at covering her tracks, but maybe there's something we overlooked, something she hid so well that even we didn't catch it. The idea of something still lurking in the shadows, something Rachel could use to hurt me even further, sent a chill down my spine. I had thought I was done with all of this, that I could finally start to rebuild. But now, it seemed that Rachel had one last card to play. I need to know, I said, the resolve hardening in my voice. Whatever she's talking about, I need to find it. Tom nodded, his expression serious. I'll help you. We'll go through everything again, but this time we'll look for what's missing, not just what's there. We spent the next week combing through every document, every piece of evidence. Tom and I worked late into the night, sifting through the details of Rachel's schemes, looking for anything that didn't add up. It was exhausting, frustrating work, and more than once, I wondered if I was chasing shadows. But something kept me going. A gut feeling that there was still a piece of the puzzle missing. Finally, after days of searching, we found it. It was Tom who made the discovery. He had been going through the records of a small offshore account we had initially dismissed as irrelevant. On the surface, it looked like a minor holding, barely worth our attention. But when Tom dug deeper, he found a series of transactions that didn't make sense, money flowing in and out of the account in a way that suggested something far more significant. This isn't just a slush fund, Tom said, his voice tense with excitement. This is a back door into something bigger. We traced the transactions, following the money trail through a complex web of shell companies and dummy accounts. The deeper we went, the clearer the picture became. Rachel had been hiding something massive, an entire network of illegal activities that stretched far beyond what we had uncovered before. Drugs, money laundering, blackmail, it was all there, hidden in plain sight. Rachel had been running a criminal empire right under my nose, using the business as a front to launder her profits and cover her tracks. And the worst part? She had been doing it for years. As we pieced it all together, the scale of Rachel's betrayal hit me like a freight train. This wasn't just about her affair with Flynn or her attempt to frame me. This was something far darker, far more insidious. She had built her entire life on lies, manipulating everyone around her to get what she wanted. But even as the anger and disbelief coursed through me, there was something else, an uneasy feeling that Rachel had anticipated this moment. The letter, the cryptic warning. It had been her way of letting me know that I was walking into a trap. She wanted me to find this, to see the full extent of her treachery. The question was, why? Tom and I sat in silence for a long time, the weight of our discovery pressing down on us. Finally, Tom spoke, his voice low and grave. "Jack, if this gets out, it could ruin everything. The business, your reputation, everything we've worked to rebuild." I knew he was right. Exposing Rachel's criminal empire would drag me down with her. Even if I could prove I had no involvement, the scandal alone would be enough to destroy everything I had left. But there was another option, one that Rachel had likely counted on me considering. I could bury the truth, keep it hidden, and move on with my life. No one would ever know the full extent of her crimes, and I could continue rebuilding without the shadow of her betrayal hanging over me. It was a tempting thought, but deep down I knew it wasn't an option. Rachel had already taken so much from me. I couldn't let her win, couldn't let her get away with what she'd done. Even if it meant risking everything, I had to see this through. "We have to take it to the authorities," I said, my voice firm despite the fear gnawing at me. "We can't let her get away with this." Tom nodded, though I could see the worry in his eyes. "It's a risk, Jack, a big one." "I know," I replied, "but it's the only way to end this, once and for all." As we made the decision to go to the authorities, I couldn't shake the feeling that Rachel was still in control, still pulling the strings from behind the scenes. The final twist in her game had been revealed, and now it was up to me to decide how it would end. But one thing was certain. No matter what happened next, I wouldn't let her win. Rachel might have been a master of deception, but I was done playing her game. It was time to bring everything into the light, no matter the cost. With the evidence of Rachel's criminal activities gathered and prepared, the next step was to go to the authorities. It wasn't a decision made lightly. Exposing the full extent of her schemes meant risking not only my reputation, but also the fragile stability of the business. But I had come too far to back down now. Rachel had betrayed me in ways I could scarcely comprehend, and it was time for justice to take its course. Tom and I arranged a meeting with the district attorney, a woman named Linda Caldwell, who had a reputation for being both fair and relentless. She listened intently as we laid out the evidence, her eyes narrowing with interest as the scope of Rachel's operations became clear. The deeper we dug into the records, the more appalled Linda became. "This is extensive," she said, after reviewing the documents, "and dangerous. You're sure about this?" "Absolutely," I replied. "Rachel Carter was behind everything. Flynn was just a pawn in her game." Linda nodded, her expression serious. "We'll need to corroborate everything you've provided and prepare for a thorough investigation. This will be a high-profile case, and it won't be easy. There's a lot at stake." "I understand," I said, "but I want this done. I want the truth to come out." Linda agreed to keep me updated on the progress, and we left her office with a sense of uneasy anticipation. The days that followed were filled with a whirlwind of activity. The authorities began their investigation, and Rachel's criminal network slowly came into focus. The press caught wind of the story, and the media storm began, dragging my name through the mud once again. Despite the chaos, there was a sense of relief in seeing Rachel's empire exposed. The truth was out, and her deceitful web was being unraveled. But the price was steep. The business continued to suffer under the weight of the scandal, and my personal life felt like it was being torn apart by the relentless scrutiny. Rachel, from her prison cell, fought back in her own way. Her lawyer managed to secure a temporary injunction, halting the investigation and creating a media circus. Rachel began leaking statements to the press, painting herself as a victim of a vengeful ex-husband and an unjust system. It was a calculated move, designed to turn public opinion against me and to buy herself time. The courtroom became a battleground, with Rachel and Flynn attempting to discredit me at every turn. They claimed that I was the real mastermind, trying to shift the blame and avoid my own culpability. It was a cruel twist of fate that added another layer of complexity to an already convoluted situation. In the midst of the legal battles, I found a surprising ally, Tom. He remained steadfast, working tirelessly to support me and to counter Rachel's claims. His loyalty and dedication were a beacon of support during an incredibly dark time. As the trial approached, I faced the daunting task of preparing for the courtroom. It was clear that Rachel had left no stone unturned in her efforts to portray herself as the victim. But I was determined to see justice served, no matter the cost. The courtroom drama was intense. Rachel's lawyer, a slick and smooth-talking defense attorney, tried to paint a picture of a misunderstood woman caught in a web of circumstance. But Linda Caldwell and her team were prepared, presenting the evidence with meticulous detail and unwavering confidence. I took the stand, recounting my experiences and presenting the evidence that Rachel had tried so hard to conceal. The weight of the truth was heavy, but I stood firm, determined to see this through. The cross-examination was brutal. Rachel's attorney tried to shake my testimony, casting doubt on my credibility and questioning my motives. But despite the attacks, I held my ground, driven by the knowledge that I was fighting for the truth. As the trial progressed, it became evident that the jury was swayed by the overwhelming evidence. Rachel's schemes were exposed for what they were, an elaborate and ruthless deception that had affected countless lives. Flynn's involvement was also laid bare, and he faced a long prison sentence for his role in her criminal empire. In the end, Rachel was convicted on multiple charges, including drug trafficking, money laundering, and conspiracy. The judge handed down a lengthy prison sentence, and the courtroom erupted in a mix of relief and solemnity. The damage had been done, but justice had been served. As I walked out of the courthouse, the weight of the trial lifted from my shoulders. The battle was over, but the scars remained. The business was on the mend, but it would take time to fully recover. My personal life, too, was forever changed by the ordeal. Rachel's final act of defiance had been to turn the trial into a spectacle, but in the end, it hadn't worked. The truth had prevailed, and the law had taken its course. The sense of vindication was bittersweet. I had won, but the victory came at a high price. As I looked back on everything that had happened, I couldn't help but feel a mix of sadness and relief. Rachel had been a part of my life for so long, and her betrayal had cut deeply. But now, I was free to move forward, to rebuild, and to find some semblance of peace. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I knew one thing for sure. I had faced the storm and come out on the other side. The reckoning was over, and it was time to look to the future. With the truth finally out and justice served, I could begin to heal. The battle with Rachel had taken everything I had, but it had also shown me what I was capable of. And as I stepped into the new chapter of my life, I was determined to make it a better one built on honesty, integrity, and resilience. The verdict in Rachel's trial had brought a semblance of closure, but the aftermath was far from over. The media frenzy that followed was relentless, with every detail of the case dissected and debated. My name was once again in the headlines, but this time, it was a mixed bag of relief and scrutiny. With Rachel's empire dismantled and Flynn behind bars, the business slowly began to recover. The initial fallout had been severe, but as time passed, clients returned, and the damage was repaired. The company was still standing, and with Tom's unwavering support, we started to rebuild from the ashes. It wasn't just a matter of restoring the business's reputation, it was about finding a way to move forward after everything that had happened. One day, as I was sifting through the paperwork in my office, Tom walked in with a look of determination on his face. "Jack, I've been thinking," he said, "about what comes next. We've made great strides, but we need to do more than just recover. We need to rebuild stronger, more resilient." I nodded, appreciating his forward-thinking approach. "What do you have in mind?" Tom took a deep breath. "We need to redefine our brand, show people that we're not just bouncing back from scandal, we're evolving. We should focus on transparency, integrity, and community engagement. Let's turn this crisis into an opportunity to rebuild our reputation from the ground up." His words resonated with me. The idea of not just recovering but thriving in the wake of adversity was exactly what we needed. Together, we began to implement a new strategy, one that emphasized ethical practices, openness with clients, and active participation in community projects. The process of rebuilding was painstaking but rewarding. We hosted community events, engaged with local organizations, and made a point of demonstrating our commitment to ethical business practices. The effort paid off. Gradually, the negative press began to fade, replaced by positive stories of our renewed dedication to integrity and service. On a personal level, the process of moving on was more complex. The emotional toll of the past year weighed heavily on me. The betrayal, the legal battles, and the public scrutiny had left scars that were slow to heal. I began seeing a therapist to help me navigate the emotional aftermath. It was an important step toward finding closure and understanding the impact of Rachel's actions on my life. As I worked through my feelings and focused on rebuilding the business, I also started to reconnect with friends and family. The isolation I had felt during the crisis was beginning to lift, and I began to appreciate the support of those who had stood by me throughout the ordeal. One evening, I met with an old friend, Rachel Andrews, at a local cafe. We had known each other for years, and our conversations had always been a source of comfort. As we sat across from each other, she offered me a sympathetic smile. "You've been through a lot," Rachel said gently, "but you've come out stronger. I admire your strength and your determination to rebuild." "Thanks, Rachel," I replied. "It hasn't been easy, but I'm trying to make the best of it." We talked for hours, reminiscing and catching up on each other's lives. Her words of encouragement were a reminder of the support I had, even when things seemed bleak. It was a small but meaningful step toward reclaiming a sense of normalcy and building a future beyond the shadows of the past. As the months passed, the business continued to grow, and my personal life began to stabilize. I started to explore new opportunities, both professionally and personally. The experience had changed me, and I was determined to use the lessons learned to create a better future. One day, as I looked out over the office from my window, I felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. The road had been long and difficult, but we had navigated it together. The company was not just surviving but thriving, and I was finding a new balance in my life. I had faced betrayal, fought for justice, and come through the other side. The journey had been arduous, but it had also been transformative. I was no longer the man who had been blindsided by Rachel's deceit. I had emerged from the ordeal with a renewed sense of purpose and a deeper understanding of myself. As I moved forward, I carried with me the lessons of the past year, the importance of resilience, the value of integrity, and the strength found in rebuilding after a fall. The future was still uncertain, but it was mine to shape. And with the scars of the past slowly fading, I looked forward to the next chapter of my life with hope and determination. In the end, the journey had been about more than just surviving Rachel's betrayal. It had been about discovering my own strength, finding support in unexpected places, and building a future that was not defined by the past, but by the choices I made moving forward. The reckoning was over, and now it was time to embrace the possibilities of the future, whatever they might hold. The months following the trial were filled with a renewed sense of purpose. As the business stabilized and began to grow, I found myself more focused than ever on forging a new path. The turmoil and heartache of the past year had given way to a cautious optimism, and I was determined to make the most of the fresh start I had been given. One of the first steps in this new chapter was rebranding the company. Tom and I worked closely with a marketing team to develop a new image that reflected our commitment to ethical business practices and community involvement. We introduced new initiatives aimed at giving back to the community, including scholarships for local students and support for small businesses. The rebranding efforts were met with a positive response. Clients and partners who had been wary of working with us began to see the changes we were making, and the company's reputation slowly began to recover. The trust that had been damaged was gradually being rebuilt, one client and one project at a time. On the personal front, I continued to focus on my own healing and growth. The therapy sessions had been invaluable, helping me process the emotional fallout from Rachel's betrayal and the subsequent legal battles. I began to rediscover hobbies and interests that had been sidelined during the crisis. Whether it was picking up a guitar again or taking weekend hikes, these activities brought a sense of joy and balance to my life. Reconnecting with old friends and family was another crucial part of my healing process. I reached out to those who had been supportive during the worst of the ordeal and began to rebuild those relationships. It was comforting to have a strong support network, and their encouragement played a significant role in my recovery. One evening, as I was relaxing at home, I received a call from Linda Caldwell, the district attorney who had handled Rachel's case. She wanted to meet and discuss something important. I agreed, curious about what she had to say. We met at a quiet cafe, and Linda wasted no time getting to the point. "Jack," she said, "I wanted to thank you for your cooperation during the trial. Your willingness to stand up and see the truth through made a significant impact." "I appreciate that," I replied. "It was a difficult journey, but I'm glad justice was served." Linda nodded. "There's something else. After the trial, I continued to investigate some of the leads that came up during the case. We've discovered that Rachel was part of a larger network of organized crime. Her conviction was just one piece of a much larger puzzle." The news was both surprising and troubling. The realization that Rachel's criminal activities were part of a broader network was unsettling, but Linda's words also served as a reminder of the importance of vigilance and integrity in the fight against corruption. "I'm glad you're continuing the investigation," I said. "It's important to address the full scope of her actions." Linda agreed, "And I wanted to let you know that your efforts have not gone unnoticed. You've been an important part of bringing a significant criminal operation to light. Your courage and determination have made a difference." As we finished our conversation, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The struggle against Rachel's betrayal had been a defining moment in my life, but it had also led to a deeper understanding of justice and integrity. Her actions had ripple effects that extended far beyond our personal lives, and seeing the impact of our efforts gave me a sense of closure. With the business on a positive trajectory and my personal life beginning to stabilize, I decided it was time to focus on the future. I started exploring new opportunities, including the possibility of mentoring others who had faced similar challenges. Sharing my experiences and helping others navigate their own difficulties became a new passion. One day, I received an invitation to speak at a conference on resilience and overcoming adversity. It was an opportunity to share my story and inspire others who were facing their own battles. As I prepared my speech, I reflected on the journey I had been through, the betrayal, the fight for justice, and the rebuilding of my life. Standing before the audience, I shared my story with honesty and vulnerability. I spoke about the lessons I had learned and the strength I had found in the face of adversity. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and it was clear that my experiences had resonated with many. As the conference came to a close, I felt a sense of fulfillment. The journey had been arduous, but it had also led to a new beginning. I had emerged from the ordeal with a deeper understanding of myself and a renewed sense of purpose. The past was behind me, and the future was filled with possibilities. In the months that followed, I continued to embrace the new opportunities that came my way. The business thrived, my personal life found balance, and I remained committed to using my experiences to help others. The scars of the past would always be a part of me, but they no longer defined me. As I looked out over the city from my office window, I felt a profound sense of peace. The journey from betrayal to rebuilding had been long and challenging, but it had also been transformative. I had faced the darkness and emerged into the light, and I was ready to embrace whatever the future held. The new chapter of my life was just beginning, and with each step forward, I carried with me the lessons of the past and the hope for a brighter future. The road ahead was still unfolding, but I was prepared to face it with resilience and determination. The story of my recovery was a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the power of perseverance, and as I moved forward, I did so with a sense of gratitude and anticipation for the adventures yet to come. With my life slowly returning to a sense of normalcy, I was beginning to think that the worst was behind me. The business was stabilizing, personal relationships were mending, and my new ventures were proving fulfilling. Just as I was settling into this newfound equilibrium, an unexpected turn of events brought a familiar face back into my life. It started with a phone call. One afternoon, as I was reviewing documents in my office, the phone rang. The caller ID showed an unfamiliar number, but something about it made me answer. "Hello, Jack," the voice on the other end said. It was soft, almost hesitant. "This is Claire Hamilton. We met briefly at a business conference a few years ago." Claire Hamilton. The name took me a moment to place, but I remembered her as someone I had briefly interacted with in the past. She had been friendly, someone who had left a positive impression. "Claire," I said, trying to place her face. "It's been a while. How can I help you?" "I know this is unexpected," she continued, "but I've been following the news and the recent developments with your case. I wanted to reach out because I think I might be able to help with something." My curiosity was piqued. Help with what exactly? Claire explained that she had recently come into possession of some documents that might be relevant to my situation. She had connections to a few individuals who had been involved in the periphery of Rachel's criminal network and had stumbled upon information that could be crucial. I'm not sure how much it will help, Claire said, but I thought it was worth sharing. Can we meet to discuss this further? We arranged to meet at a cafe downtown. When I arrived, Claire was already there, waiting with a stack of files. She looked calm and composed, but there was an underlying urgency in her demeanor. As we sat down, Claire began to explain. These documents include details about some of Rachel's connections that weren't uncovered during the trial. There's a network of individuals involved in similar activities who might still be operating. This information could be valuable in preventing future crimes. I reviewed the files Claire had brought with me. The documents contained detailed records of transactions, names of individuals, and connections to other criminal activities. It was clear that Claire had done her homework, and the information was substantial. Thank you for bringing this to me, I said. This could make a significant difference. Why did you decide to reach out? Claire's expression softened. I've been following the case closely and felt a moral obligation to do what I could. I also wanted to offer my support. I know how difficult this must have been for you. Her sincerity was evident, and I was grateful for her assistance. I appreciate it, Claire. It's been a challenging time, and your help is invaluable. Over the following weeks, I worked closely with Claire and her contacts to follow up on the information she had provided. The new leads proved to be crucial in identifying other individuals involved in criminal activities. It was a reminder that the fight against corruption and crime was ongoing, and that vigilance was always necessary. As our work progressed, Claire and I continued to stay in touch. We found that our conversations went beyond just the investigation. We talked about our experiences, our aspirations, and our views on the world. Claire had a way of seeing things clearly and offering insightful perspectives that resonated with me. Gradually, our professional relationship evolved into a friendship. Claire's support during this time was a bright spot in an otherwise tumultuous period. We shared moments of laughter and reflection, and I began to value her presence more and more. One evening, after a particularly long day of working through documents and following leads, Claire and I went out for dinner. As we talked over a meal, the conversation turned to more personal topics. I've been thinking a lot about what comes next, Claire said, her voice thoughtful. This experience has changed me in ways I didn't expect. Me too, I admitted. It's been a journey, and I've learned a lot about myself and about the world. We spent the rest of the evening discussing our hopes for the future. Claire spoke about her desire to continue working in areas where she could make a difference, and I shared my own plans for growth and new ventures. As the night drew to a close, I realized how much I had come to appreciate Claire's presence in my life. Her support and friendship had been a source of strength, and I looked forward to continuing our collaboration. The unexpected reconnection with Claire Hamilton was a reminder that even in the midst of adversity, new and meaningful relationships could be forged. The past year had been filled with challenges, but it had also opened the door to new possibilities and opportunities. As I looked ahead to the future, I felt a renewed sense of hope. With the support of friends like Claire and the lessons learned from the trials I had faced, I was ready to embrace the next chapter of my life. The road ahead was still unfolding, but I was confident that with resilience, determination, and the support of those who truly cared, I could face whatever came next. With the business stabilizing and my personal life finding a new rhythm, I felt ready to embrace fresh opportunities. The past year had taught me the value of resilience and the importance of staying vigilant against the unexpected. As I began to explore new ventures, I encountered a series of challenges and opportunities that would shape the next phase of my journey. One of the first new ventures I pursued was expanding the company's reach into international markets. The idea had been in the back of my mind for some time, but the recent stability provided the perfect opportunity to explore it further. The prospect of taking the business to new heights was exciting, but it also came with its own set of challenges. Tom and I began researching potential markets and forming strategic partnerships with firms abroad. We attended international business conferences, met with potential partners, and navigated the complexities of global trade regulations. The learning curve was steep, but the potential rewards were significant. We were determined to position our company as a global player and to build on the success we had achieved domestically. As we delved into the international expansion, a new challenge emerged. One of our major international partners encountered financial difficulties, jeopardizing our planned expansion. The situation was delicate, and it required careful negotiation and problem-solving to mitigate the impact on our business. It was a stark reminder that, even with careful planning, unforeseen obstacles could arise. The process of overcoming these challenges demanded a great deal of time and effort. We worked tirelessly to renegotiate terms, find alternative partners, and ensure that our expansion plans remained on track. It was a stressful period, but it also reinforced the importance of adaptability and persistence. Amidst the business challenges, I continued to focus on personal growth. The lessons learned from the previous year had given me a new perspective on life and relationships. I made a conscious effort to balance work with personal time, reconnecting with old friends, and exploring new hobbies. One day, I decided to take a short trip to a nearby town for a weekend getaway. It was a spontaneous decision, driven by a desire to escape the pressures of daily life and recharge. During the trip, I stumbled upon a quaint art gallery that caught my attention. The artwork was captivating, and I found myself drawn into the world of creativity and expression. The experience was more than just a pleasant diversion. It was a reminder of the importance of finding joy in the simple things and embracing new experiences. I returned from the trip with a renewed sense of inspiration and a fresh outlook on life. As the international expansion continued to evolve, I also began to explore other ways to contribute to the community. I became involved in local charities and mentorship programs, offering support to aspiring entrepreneurs and young professionals. It was fulfilling to use my experiences and resources to make a positive impact on others. One evening, while attending a charity event, I met a young entrepreneur named Olivia who was passionate about sustainable business practices. Her enthusiasm and innovative ideas resonated with me, and I saw an opportunity to collaborate on a project that aligned with both our values. We decided to work together on a new initiative focused on promoting environmentally friendly practices within the industry. The project was a rewarding challenge, requiring creative thinking and collaboration. It was inspiring to work with someone who shared my commitment to making a difference, and the initiative received positive feedback from both the community and industry leaders. It was a testament to the power of partnership and the impact of working toward a common goal. As I reflected on the experiences of the past year and the new opportunities that had arisen, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. The challenges had been formidable, but they had also led to growth and new horizons. The journey had taught me that even in the face of adversity, there were always opportunities to create something meaningful and positive. Looking ahead, I was excited about the future and the possibilities it held. The international expansion was on track, personal growth was ongoing, and new projects were taking shape. The road ahead was still uncertain, but it was filled with potential. As I prepared for the next phase of my journey, I carried with me the lessons of resilience, adaptability, and the importance of embracing new challenges. The experiences of the past year had shaped me in ways I could not have anticipated, and I was ready to face whatever came next with confidence and optimism. The future was a blank canvas, and I was eager to paint it with the colors of new experiences, meaningful connections, and a commitment to making a positive impact. The journey had been arduous, but it had also been transformative, and I was prepared to embrace the next chapter with an open heart and a determined spirit. As the company made significant strides in international markets and personal life continued to evolve positively, a new and unexpected challenge emerged. The previous year had taught me resilience, but nothing could have prepared me for the final test that would truly assess my ability to navigate adversity. It began with a seemingly innocuous email marked urgent in the subject line. The message came from an anonymous sender, claiming to have information that could potentially jeopardize the progress we had made. The email was vague, mentioning potential threats and urging me to meet in person to discuss further. Given the unsettling nature of the message, I approached it with caution. I decided to involve Tom and Claire in this situation. Tom was initially skeptical, but Claire's expertise in investigative matters proved invaluable. We agreed to meet with the sender in a secure location to assess the credibility of the threat. The meeting was set at a discreet, neutral venue. Claire and I arrived early to ensure the location was secure. When the anonymous individual finally showed up, he was a nervous, disheveled man who identified himself as Nathan. His demeanor suggested he was genuinely concerned, but his identity and motives remained unclear. "I'm here because I have information about a potential threat to your business," Nathan said, his voice trembling. "I used to work with someone connected to Rachel's network, and I've learned that they're planning something against you." The news was alarming, and Claire's investigative instincts were immediately on high alert. "What exactly do you know?" she asked. Nathan explained that he had overheard conversations about a scheme to undermine our recent expansion efforts. He didn't have specific details, but insisted that the threat was serious and imminent. His request was for protection in exchange for more information. The situation was complex. On one hand, Nathan's claims could be legitimate and warrant immediate action. On the other hand, there was a risk that he might be attempting to manipulate us, or was himself part of a larger scheme. Claire and I decided to proceed cautiously. We contacted law enforcement to investigate the credibility of Nathan's claims. They began monitoring potential threats and conducting background checks on Nathan. In parallel, we took additional security measures for the business and for ourselves, ensuring that all precautions were in place. As the investigation progressed, the tension was palpable. The threat loomed over us, casting a shadow over our achievements. Every aspect of the business and personal life seemed under scrutiny, and the stress was beginning to take its toll. Days passed, and Nathan's claims remained unverified. Law enforcement found no concrete evidence of a direct threat, but they continued to monitor the situation. The uncertainty was frustrating, and it became clear that we needed to focus on maintaining our progress while staying vigilant. Throughout this period, Claire and Tom provided unwavering support. Claire's analytical approach helped keep us focused on practical steps, while Tom's steady presence offered reassurance. Their support was invaluable, and it reinforced the strength of our partnership. After weeks of heightened vigilance and stress, the threat began to dissipate. Law enforcement concluded their investigation with no clear evidence of an imminent danger. Nathan's claims remained unverified, and he eventually disappeared, leaving us with more questions than answers. Despite the lack of resolution, the experience was a sobering reminder of the constant need for vigilance. It reinforced the importance of having strong security measures and being prepared for unforeseen challenges. The final test had been a trial of our ability to manage uncertainty and maintain focus amid potential threats. As the situation settled, I reflected on the lessons learned. The experience had been a reminder of the unpredictable nature of life and the need to remain adaptable. It had also highlighted the importance of trust and collaboration, as Claire and Tom had been instrumental in navigating the crisis. In the aftermath, I felt a renewed sense of resilience and determination. The final test had been an intense and challenging experience, but it had ultimately strengthened my resolve. The journey had taught me that even in the face of uncertainty, it was possible to emerge stronger and more prepared for whatever lay ahead. With the immediate threat behind us, I refocused on the positive aspects of the business and personal life. The progress we had made and the new opportunities on the horizon were sources of optimism. The final test had been a challenging chapter, but it had also been a testament to our ability to face adversity and continue moving forward. As I looked ahead, I was filled with a sense of accomplishment and anticipation. The experiences of the past year had shaped me in profound ways, and I was ready to embrace the future with confidence and hope. The journey had been arduous, but it had also been transformative, and I was eager to see what the next chapter would bring. With the final test behind me and the business on solid ground, I found myself at a crossroads. The past year had been filled with trials and transformations, and as I looked forward, it was clear that the time had come to embrace a new phase of life. The recovery from the threats and challenges had given me a renewed sense of purpose. With Claire's continued support and the successful completion of our international expansion, it was clear that the journey was far from over. The path ahead was filled with possibilities, and I was determined to seize them. One of the most significant changes was the opportunity to reflect on the impact of my experiences. I began to spend more time on personal development and exploring new passions. The experiences of the past year had instilled in me a deeper understanding of what truly mattered in life, and I wanted to build on that foundation. One afternoon, as I walked through a local park, I encountered a group of young professionals discussing their entrepreneurial ventures. Their energy and enthusiasm were contagious, and I was inspired by their drive and creativity. I saw an opportunity to use my experiences to mentor and support the next generation of entrepreneurs. I reached out to local universities and business incubators, offering to conduct workshops and mentor aspiring entrepreneurs. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and I found immense satisfaction in sharing my knowledge and helping others navigate the challenges of starting and growing a business. It was a way to give back and make a positive impact on the community. In addition to mentoring, I continued to explore new ventures and opportunities. One of the most exciting developments was the possibility of collaborating with Claire on a new project focused on sustainability and innovation. Our shared passion for making a difference in the world led us to develop a series of initiatives aimed at promoting environmentally friendly practices within the industry. The project was ambitious, involving collaboration with industry leaders, environmental experts, and community organizations. It required innovative thinking and a commitment to creating real change. As we worked on the project, I was struck by the sense of purpose it brought. It was a reminder that even in the face of adversity, there were opportunities to create something meaningful and positive. The collaboration with Claire also deepened our friendship. We spent countless hours brainstorming, strategizing, and working together on the project. Our shared vision and complementary skills made us a strong team, and the success of our initiatives was a testament to our dedication and hard work. As the project gained momentum, I also began to focus on personal goals and aspirations. The challenges of the past year had taught me the importance of self-care and balance. I made a conscious effort to prioritize my well-being, taking time to relax, enjoy hobbies, and nurture relationships. One evening, as I sat on the balcony of my apartment, watching the city lights twinkle below, I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this point. The trials, the triumphs, and the lessons learned had all contributed to a deeper understanding of myself and a renewed sense of purpose. The future was filled with potential, and I was eager to embrace it with an open heart and a determined spirit. The experiences of the past year had shaped me in ways I could not have anticipated, and I was ready to move forward with confidence and optimism. As I looked ahead, I felt a sense of gratitude for the support I had received from friends, colleagues, and mentors. Their encouragement had been instrumental in overcoming the challenges and finding new opportunities. I was committed to using my experiences to make a positive impact and to continue growing both personally and professionally. The journey had been arduous, but it had also been transformative. The final chapter of this story was not an end, but a beginning, a new chapter filled with possibilities and opportunities. With each step forward, I carried with me the lessons of the past and the hope for a brighter future. The road ahead was still unfolding, and while there would undoubtedly be new challenges and opportunities, I was prepared to face them with resilience and determination. The story of my journey was a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the power of embracing change. As I embarked on this new chapter, I did so with a sense of anticipation and excitement. The future was a blank canvas, and I was ready to paint it with the colors of new experiences, meaningful connections, and a commitment to making a positive impact. The journey had been long and challenging, but it had also been incredibly rewarding, and I was eager to see what the next chapter would bring.